Okay, this is pretty weird.
Yeah.
All right. Hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good.
So,
How are we? How are we?
I'm all
Haven't
right.
haven't seen you
This
in a
is
long time.
yes, it's very strange. So this is pretty weird, and we're just gonna try to do something here. I'm I'm Dwayne, and that's Tiff, and we're friends, and we're both I don't know, we're both doing stuff, and we had this idea that maybe we should start recording some of our conversations, putting them out there because we end up talking about a weird um, and strange array of things that we think that other people might want to hear because we're so egotistical. We just really want to be on TV. And actually, this is really good practice for me because I'm working on some stuff in the future where I could be in a forum like this on a regular basis in the future. And I said that already. And so this is kind of practice. So we'll this it's like I said, it's an experiment. So a little bit about me. Um, what should I say about me? I don't know. I'm I've had an interesting life. I've had an interesting career. I've had several careers. About 10 years ago, my life started changing in a big way. Um, my marriage dissolved, and I met some different people and had some different experiences. And I would say that I sort of started waking up, shall I say? And about 4 years ago, I had a couple of significant life altering experiences. And it made me reevaluate my life in a big way. And I decided to stop living for tomorrow and start living for today. And I started traveling. That eventually led to me selling off a bunch of my worldly possessions and some of the security that I built up for my career. And I started traveling, and I just kind of been bumming around, walking the earth, if you will, for the last 4 years. Um, and that phase seems to have led me to probably what I was looking for, which was kind of like I qualified as like my soul's purpose. Like what my big question is like what should I do next with the rest of my life? What should I do with the time I've got left? And I was really looking for like things that speak to my soul. What am I supposed to be doing here on the planet with the time I've got left? And um, so I'm pretty sure that I know what that is now, and how I came to that will come out in some of the conversations that I think we are going to have. Um, and what else more should I say? I don't know. You can talk for a while now.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the things that you're saying are true for me as well. In essence, I moved around a lot and had a few different careers as well. Always sort of trying to find that middle with a piece of alignment of what I'm supposed to be doing with my life and how to do that in the most impactful manner, I suppose. What it always seems to come back around to for me is working with people. And so I've done that one-on-one and in groups. And, so right now I work as a transformational life coach. That is my background. So I have a degree in psychology and spent a very long time working with pretty much every kind of group and every kind of issue that presents. And, along with the same as what you said, I'm looking for a way to do that now in a just sort of a larger way to sort of spread that a bit. So it's not always just one-on-one. And I think for me in the last few years, connection has been a really big word and something that seems to be lacking in almost everyone I work with. And sort of heart-based living, I suppose, and what that actually means and how do we get there? Because there's, Dwayne and I have talked, you and I have talked a lot about how people really are searching and they're missing. They feel they're missing something. And so how do we find a way to help people find that? Because that's, in essence, what's going to change things on this planet of ours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we're friends. So, I mean, and we there's a lot of resonance for us too. And what I'm going to do next is really the distillation of a bunch of things that I experienced personally in my awakening. And we both hate that word to a certain extent, but in my, the realization that, I think I fundamentally changed a great deal, and I've grown a great deal as a human being. But I look around what's going on in the world at large, and it scares the shit out of me. Like, what's happening with media, what's happening with social media, how that's fundamentally altered the way that people are interacting. I think, there's big issues like climate change. There, our industrial food complex, our military industrial complex, religions. Um, uh, the list of sort of crises that I'll say that seem to be, being thrown in our faces on a regular basis it seems to be endless. And I think, and everyone's going to have to understand Tiff and I will talk for each other
Yes.
sometimes, but I know we both feel that we feel it, and you get this sense with a lot of people that they're very, very disillusioned. People are very, very checked out. In certainly in a lot of circles, people are very distracted. People are very frustrated. They're scared, and they don't necessarily know what to do. And so, what's happening is, obviously people are very, very distracted. We spend a lot of our time on our phones. We spend a lot of our time becoming more and more polarized and disagreeing. And some of the tools that we've got and some of the technology we've got has actually led us, as opposed to connecting people, which it has the power to do. What's the net result of what's happening on a larger scale is people are becoming far less connected and far more isolated. People are far more lonely, with a lot of these global tools that we have, and there's a reinforcement of how much we are different as opposed to how much we are the same. There's a reinforcement of, as opposed to people living out of a place of, like you said, open heart or love. People are living in this place of fear and this place of hopelessness and those kinds of things. And when I have stepped back and I've stepped away and I've kind of been off the grid, if to a certain extent, for a few years, you begin to see a lot of patterns, and you begin to see that a lot of this is actually being done purposefully. It's actually being, we, for lack of a better term, I think a lot of this is being manipulated because it's playing into someone else's agenda, but that's getting into some really big high level stuff that I think will come out in the course of conversation that we're going to have. So, just for everyone else's benefit, what I sort of started, we wanted to try this little experiment because Tiff and I end up having these conversations on a regular basis that touch on a whole bunch of different aspects of some of the nonsense that I just said. And we're also human beings that are like, we struggle too. We get sucked into these arguments. We get sucked into online stuff. We get sucked into feeling hopeless. And so we talk to each other. We kind of coach each other. And, in a sense, we have a little community, and we have other people that we do this with too. So it's just that Tiff and I, as you mentioned, we like, how do we start to communicate this, and how do we build community, and how do we do things in a different way? And there's lots and lots and lots of people out there in this space already. And I mean, I know through the course of conversation, we're going to end up talking about, the Tony Robbins and the Russell Brands and the Jordan Petersons and all these sort of people in the world, as we go through. But, we both think, oh, we're just people. We're just like average Joes. Like, why does anyone care what the hell that we actually say or think? But, you remember that all those other people are just people too. And just because we don't have a big platform or a voice doesn't mean that what we're saying is or is any more or less valid than some of that other stuff. And the trouble with a lot of those sort of big brand, um, wide scope people is that it becomes kind of canned, and they can start playing to the choir, preaching to the choir, and you get a real sort of it becomes a little box, and you subscribe to sort of this way of thinking or this person's particular view or that, and all of the stuff that you do and that I sort of subscribe to, all of those things can help people, but there's not one not necessarily one way to get there, right?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the fact that, we're all individual. And so the most important part really is to when we begin to get curious about all of these things. And you can listen to all kinds of people, and those threads that resonate with you, those are the ones that you listen to, and start to weave them together into your own sort of fabric of how you're gonna walk. And with people like that have big platforms, I think lots of them have really great things to say, and then I think there comes a point where they become a little less relatable.
Yes.
That people seem to think, or maybe begin to feel like, oh well, I can't. I'm just down here working,
right,
trying to survive, making it work on this level, and so creates a bit of a separation. So trying to talk to more people to help them realize that that's actually not the truth, and that we actually have all the power, but
right.
we don't see it anymore,
Right.
which is part of the change that needs to happen.
Right.
How we go about that is the sticker, but community.
Right. Right. Well, and I know for sure that. So, without revealing too much, I have this idea for an app, and one of the ultimate goals for my app is that, I guess I want to inspire people to become curious, about their lives again, and to become curious about what's going on in the world, and to ask questions. And then also, I think one of my big goals is to have a place where people can build community around different things, not around how much I hate this politician or how much I hate this particular religion or those kinds of things, but around like a different sort of a different set of views. So,
and that people can actually test out, when they start to sort of venture into these areas, there's a whole sort of community that you can go and sort of talk about that stuff with,
right.
That's, for lack of a better term, safe.
Yeah.
You can explore more so with a group that you already know are kind of questioning the same things.
Yep.
And that curiosity, I really think too, in being curious about all of the outside stuff, but also getting curious about ourselves and getting back to that place too about, it's hard to sometimes get through that layer of survival, I guess, and fear and sort of anger and just kind of treading water. But if we could just start even by getting curious about ourselves and the people that are around us.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
That doesn't happen as often as it should.
Right.
But like you said, with this, that's one of the downsides of social media and the connecting that way, is that more isolated feeling that happens. We sort of are more looking inward all the time, like thinking about how everything relates to us, not how we're relating to everything, and what's actually going on for whoever it is that might be in your sphere at the moment or who's communicating with you. Does that make sense?
Well, I think some of what you're speaking to, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's a little bit of a false sense of connection that occurs, because what you're getting is like that person that you may not know or may not know very well, or maybe used to know very well, but who lives, down the street or whatever. But you don't know what their day was like. You don't know what their morning was like. And when you connect via some of these tools, it's fairly one-dimensional, and it compresses us, and it can lead to that I don't know, a lack of appreciation. I think that there's another human being, that you're addressing, and those kinds of things. And I mean, well, I had an example of that on my stupid Facebook page this morning, and that was it just sort of highlighted that, right, where you post something, and it's like, this is, and I don't have, that this was on my private page, so I posted something, and then some people reacted, and some people react. And what I posted was fairly strong, because I'm a fairly strong person. I have fairly strong views about this particular issue. But then, the comments you get back is like, and I'm aware enough to go, well, they don't know me. They have very little knowledge of me and who I am. But a lot of it's based on what they see on social media, and they're like, oh, they form an opinion about that. But the one person that's like, I haven't physically seen this person for 30 years, right? And and then to receive some of the comments that you do, it's like, well, you don't know me, and then there's that sort of idea of it's one dimensional, and also it's limiting, and
it actually speaks to that, only thinking about what's external, in the sense that we're only thinking about ourselves. Like, if someone would have wrote to you in the comments, even that's interesting. Could you tell me why you think that way?
Right.
Like, even asked a question about, that would be a whole different conversation. Not that you would have ever maybe agreed, but it might we just approach things in such a, a guarded way, for one, and our assumptions, right? And our expectations, which trip you up every time. Almost every conversation could be different if someone just stopped for 1 second and thought, for one moment, put themselves in the other person's place, in the sense that, I don't mean like walking in their shoes. I mean, wondering where their view comes from. Why do they think like that?
Yeah.
What's the, what have they been reading? To me, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, but it speaks to that curiosity we've talked about so many times. That's at the core of a lot of things, right in there with connection. Because how do you actually really connect with someone? You inquire. If you're going to know someone, you have to ask some questions instead of just throwing spears.
Yeah. And I know, like, for both of us, we're both empathic, intuitive people, and I use those terms very loosely because I don't like a bunch of labels around stuff like that. But we do have the ability to see, and we see people very quickly, fairly thoroughly, if you will. And we also have the ability to hear something and go, well, wonder what's going on for that particular individual in that point in time. So we can do that kind of stuff, but not everybody has that ability. In fact, I would say most people don't. And again,
or they've shut it down.
Or they've shut it down, for a variety of reasons, or they're guarded, or
Yeah.
But again, there's a lot of sort of false stuff that comes up on places like social media as a result of that, and why but that's spilled over into our regular interactions with people we meet on the street, we've both been on and off online dating sites, and you see it how there's this objectification of people, and you're just another face, and you're just another. People don't appreciate that there's a person behind that. But you go to the grocery store, and I know there's a bunch of stuff. I'm going to sound like a bitter old man or something. But you go to the grocery store, you go to the coffee shop, and fewer and fewer people are looking people in the eye. People aren't connecting. And part of the reasons behind that is people are freaked out. People are busy. They're stressed. They're distracted. They're like, blah, blah, blah. And but it's those small interactions with the people, A, total strangers at the coffee shop, and B, the people right across the table from us, the people that we spend our lives with, the people, our spouses, our children, our grandparents, our friends and family, and those kinds of things. That all of that stuff is kind of spilled over into that.
Well, and we wonder why, in the last decade, maybe even more, how this term social anxiety has risen. And, there's so much talk about being socially awkward and all of those kind of concepts, which to me kind of tie in directly to the kind of connection that's lacking, and that so much of it is on social media now, where you're never really face to face with a whole lot of people that you might interact with.
Right. Just like you mean like what we're about to do is post a conversation of us on some social media platform.
Exactly. Yeah. I will probably never listen to these, by the way, or watch them.
No, I know. And I mean, this is, to be honest, for anyone who's paying attention to this or watching this, like this is new territory for both of us to a certain extent. I mean, I've been pushing myself into this space a little bit harder than Tiff has, but as Tiff said at the start, she's also like, how do we reach out? How do we impact sort of people beyond our normal circle? Because I think we both feel quite strongly about some of what we see going on, and we both feel we have this desire. It's like, what can I do to help? Mm-hmm.
Because the change is not going to come from the top down.
No.
Right?
No, and that's a conversation that we've had a lot in the last couple of weeks. We've talked a lot about how there's this view out there, and I'll pick on politics because that's a really easy one, but there's this view out there that, oh, I hate that guy or I hate that person, and I hate their views and beliefs, and all we have to do to get back to like some semblance of like sanity is to get rid of that guy and get the other guy in there, and that guy's going to be better than that guy. But you have to understand that there are people that hate that guy as much, and that's what's going on right now, right? And so it's like what we're doing is, because we align with the particular political party or particular politician, we think that they're better than this other guy over here, but they're both totally corrupt. They're both totally serving. They're not interested in serving people. I mean, our government systems are so broken, and not just here in North America, but everywhere in the world. Governments are failing. Systems are failing. People are starting to realize that our economic system is failing, and all the measurements we're going to be taking. So, like, again, we're getting into some pretty large concepts and things like that. And that leads to the dissatisfaction. And that's, what do I do?
Yeah.
Now, and we both gotten to the point how many times it's like, okay, now what do I do? And part of what we have decided to do is to start doing this. Yeah. Because we know we're not alone too. And so, and there is a part of this that we're trying to reach out to community ourselves. We know that there's more like-minded people out there. I'm a big fan of David Lynch. You'll hear a lot about him. If you watch these in the future, like artistically, he's one of my heroes. I love his work. I also can safely say that I came to my meditation practice, because of him. And somebody asked him something, and I'll misquote this, but recently about, something about what's going on in the world. And he had this really interesting quote, and I should have it in front of me and just recite it. But basically, he said something to the effect of, there are lots of really good and exciting things going on out there in the world already. It's just that basically that doesn't sell newspapers or TV. Yeah. And so the average person doesn't hear about it. And so, like, again, part of what we're doing here is we know that there's more like-minded people out there, but we won't go to the top of the pile. We won't go to the front of the line. We're not, people like us are not going to make, and I don't mean like us, but people who are speaking about let's work on positive change, let's work together. That's not going to sell newspapers or make headlines. And so it's really hard to find that. And that, again, is part of, I think, what you and I are about, and what my little ideas for the future stuff that I'm developing are going to be.
Which you will hear all about as we go. Yes.
Because honestly, I'm also on a journey in development of this app and all of the other stuff about it. And I'm having doubts, and I'm like freaking out half the time. And so part of this for me is journaling my journey.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a diary about development of all that stuff, because it's very personal to me, and it's a big part of it all. And I want this to be relatable, because other people have great ideas too, and I want them to see. I guess I want them to see my doubts and my fears and my where I succeed, but also where I fail and where I fall down, and how I handle all that stuff, because I think that's as important, if not more important, than just seeing the glory and the success. Again, that getting back to social media, that's all what social media is about. I mean, we were talking the other day about how Facebook and Instagram, it's like you see everyone post their best things, right? Oh, the birth of their children and their marriage and this great vacation. And it's like, holy fuck, do they ever have a great life? Well, behind the scenes, we know
people don't post their, struggles, which maybe we all should a little bit more.
Yes, there are platforms where people do, and there are people who post struggles and challenges, because there are lots of places you can go and learn about depression and build community around some of those kinds of things. People who suffer from things, and so I think there are, but
it kind of comes back to that elemental thing about connection, and also assumption and comparison, because comparison is another pothole that we fall into a lot of the time. And I think social media can make that very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's already difficult. I think as human beings, that's something we all, and with the societal conditioning that we all struggle with at some point, how things should be, should look, what we should have, what we should be doing, all of that kind of stuff. Those are killers.
Yeah. Very, very, very good point.
So stop doing that. That's my wisdom nugget of the day.
Great. How much do you charge for your counseling services again?
We won't go into that right now.
All right. So what's going on with you? Like, what's happening for you with you right now? Ooh.
Well, there are lots of things happening.
Yeah.
What are you really asking?
What am I really asking? What's on your plate? What you're dealing with? Like what someone on a personal and professional level? What are some of the things that are going well for you? What are some of the things that you're struggling with? And I mean, we didn't really talk about this. You could be as personal or not, or revelatory as you want. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, as you well know, but
yes. Let's see. I'd say, well, personally, as you know, there's a lot of sort of walking through some grief processes right now with a number of losses, one very recent. So I think that highlights, even for me, I already have a practice as a coach that I'm trying to build and building upon, which I really love to do. But this just highlights how important it is that we all step into our own process around whatever it is we're struggling with. And it doesn't have to be a complete separation of things either. And you don't have to isolate that thing, right? How do I want to say this? So, yeah, we're going to have to cut that part because I'm not finding my words with it.
Okay, well, I mean, we'll just skip on. I'm not. I don't think I can edit this, so we'll just keep going. That's
okay.
Fine. I don't mind.
What do you mean we can't edit it?
Well, I don't think I can cut that part out of like this video. I think it's just like one stream. I think like we could stop and start over, but
Okay.
yeah, which is fine. I mean, this is our first, so
Yeah,
if it's choppy and screwed up, then I don't care.
we don't need it.
No.
Yeah. I think it's actually, I haven't really articulated this even for myself yet in terms of, and I know that it'll incorporate into something that I bring forward. Because walking through grief, I think, is something that is so individual for every single person,
Yeah.
but actually is very impactful in all the areas of our life because it has all of those elements and is like a perfect setup for suppression and what grief should look like. You know, there's books about, the Kubler-Ross book about the stages of grief, and that, here they all are, and you can track yourself through them. But I actually don't believe that there's any one way for anyone.
No.
And to try and walk through that, allowing it as it comes, and just actually maybe finding some beauty and grace in it, and to carry that forward. And then for me, that becomes something I carry forward into, well, everything I do, but also my practice. So
yeah.
all of those experiences are like, that term "forged by fire" comes to mind for everyone. There's not any single one of us that isn't touched by tragedy or grief or mental health or any of those things. And so one of the important things that I've realized is that we put a lot more emphasis on those things than we do about remembering or finding where is our joy, what fills us up, what fills that cup, so that you can find the beauty and grace.
Yeah.
And walk through that with a little bit of light.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you're walking through. I mean, the list is endless. But there's all these other parts, right, that are those moments, even in one day. And that speaks to becoming really present too, to not only your own process, but what's happening around you. So any little moment, whether it's something to do with the sun shining, or a moment with your friend, or something you see that catches your breath for a moment. But we forget about those at the end of the day, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm on that note. I'm dealing with a little bit of grief myself. There's a certainly. I knew your friend who passed, and I knew a bit of his story, and I knew how close you were to him, and so we're close to him, so I feel that. Tiff and I are good friends, and so there's an energetic connection between us, and so there's a certain and again, being intuitive and empathic, like you feel your friends' like loss, you feel your friends' grief, and so I'll tell a little anecdotal story. So yesterday, Tiff was she was asked to help pull this person's obituary together, and I know that Tiff was working on it, and I know that she was not struggling, but she was trying to find the right words to say, and so she'd written something, and she asked me to look at it. And I'm a writer, and I know Tiff, and I knew Dom, and I feel all this stuff, and so I was like, oh, what she said is really good, but it needed flow, and it needed something, and so of course I happened to be here, and so I took it, and I rearranged your words and added a little bit of what I flourish, and when I read it back to you, I mean, we both got weepy, because
you were able to find that essence of him and put that into words.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what you were trying to do. And I know that, and it felt good for me to do that and help you with that. And we both had a moment. And anyways, I had drafted this email, and I sent it to you. And speaking of appreciation, we both noticed that the time that I sent it and you received it was 11:11, and that's a magic time that people sort of the magic numbers that people sort of pay attention to, and for me, stuff around seeing those numbers. Some people say, well, they're angels or whatever, and yes, sure. For me, it's really a sign of synchronicity and flow, and I always take it as whatever's happening sort of in and around those moments are happening for a reason and are supposed to be happening. And so we both had this emotional moment. We both connected. We connected with your friend, and we connected with each other. And it was kind of one of those, well,
yeah.
in this moment of grief and loss, there's a magical thing going on here too. And there's more stuff that I won't get into around that, but that was one sort of little
moment of grace.
A moment of grace, yes, and I think it was very poignant to both of us that we recognized that and connected with that moment of grace as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna.
Oh, okay.
No, I we didn't really set any time limit. I made sure we could babble on for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
but,
probably.
You've got we've got stuff to do, so I'm gonna just.
Yep.
This was our first one, and I'm just gonna play this back, and I'll probably post it. I think it's pretty good, but I mean, this is sort of a sense of what we want to do. Was just here's who we are, and we have these conversations about stuff, and it might resonate with some people, and so yeah, I appreciate you participating and stuff.
I really love you, man.
I love you too, man. All right, we better get our acts together. So
Okay.
okay.
Adios.
Bye.